To eat pork or not to eat pork on the carnivore diet? That is a question, and we'll find out in today's video. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Sylvia and I'm a carnivore mom and a carnivore coach. First things first, let's dispel some of the myths about pork. Pork isn't poultry even though it has a lighter color after you cook it. Pork is red meat, and myoglobin, a protein in meat, will decide whether it's red or not. Pork, even though when you cook it gets lighter, is red meat. Pork isn't ruminant meat. Rumen is a part of the stomach that cows and sheep are equipped with. It allows them to digest things like cellulose. Pigs don't have that kind of stomach. They are classified as omnivorous, similarly to humans. And for that reason, some people say that pork is an inferior meat to beef because it's not ruminant. That said, pork has been consumed in large quantities in much of East Asia, continental Europe, Americas. In 2018, there was a survey conducted in 146 countries, and the number one consumer of pork was Poland, with 57.6 kilograms of pork consumed per year per capita, followed closely by Hungary, then Spain, Portugal, Germany, Latvia, Lithuania, Belarus, Czech Republic, Italy, and then China. So it is fair to say that most of continental Europe loves pork and consumes anywhere between 40 to 60 kilograms of pork per year per capita. That is a lot of pork. And I have one more interesting fact. The population that eats the most meat in their diet is Hong Kong. And interestingly, they too have the highest life expectancy. And most of the meat they consume is pork as well. Some people believe that pork for some reason is a dirty meat, and I was wondering where this came from, so I digged in a little bit into historic record. Not a lot, I'll share some of it with you. And so what we know is that wherever there were human settlements, there were pigs. In China, it is said that pigs were being raised before there was written language. Pigs, back then boars were very plentiful in Europe. They were living in forests, foraging. Now, as human settlements were expanding, pigs adapted their behaviors from being foragers to being scavengers, going after human scraps. So you would see them frequently actually in the streets of the medieval Europe, going through garbage and human excrements. And apparently this is where it came from, that pigs are dirty, because since people back then were defecating in the streets, pigs would go through the human poop in search of the human scraps. And that's why it turned out that pigs are dirty animals. Now, in the Roman Empire, pigs were treated as a delicacy, and they were raised on grains and acorns, and the meat was treated as one of the best quality meat you can have. And this was also the case with Europe, medieval Europe, until the 1300s, where human settlements started pushing pigs from their forests because of all the crops and having to scavenge for food among humans, and then people started looking at them as dirty animals. On the other hand, in the Middle East, people don't consume pork at all, and it is a matter of a religious belief. Both religions, Islam and Judaism, do not allow consumption of pork. The most common reason for that is given that pigs are full of parasites. Now, this has been debunked. However, it is the prevailing belief. Throughout the history, the different scholars were trying to explain why the ban on pork made it to a religious belief, and the most common reason given is that it was actually an economic decision, because it is really expensive to raise pigs in the Middle Eastern climate. Mainly because of the amount of water that pigs require, and water it is always a concern on the African continent. There is also an ongoing discussion in the carnivore community here in the United States about consumption of pork. Should you eat it? Should you not eat it? And what would be the problem? And the main reason quoted is that pork is full of polyunsaturated fatty acids, and it has an unfavorable ratio between omega-6 fatty acids and omega-3 fatty acids. And this is the main reason as to why you should not be eating pork. Now, this conversation in the United States about polyunsaturated fat content in the meat is so big that it actually influenced consumer behaviors, and even farmers caught on to it, because I found something called farmer-led research where they were actually studying how to improve the ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acids in the livestock. And not surprisingly, they figured out that if you raise pigs on the pasture, give them their natural diet, the ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acids will be normalized, and pork will be healthy meat to consume if it's pasture raised and organic. Surprise, surprise. And because pigs don't have rumen, this is thought why they are more vulnerable to become less healthy if they're being fed a unnatural diet and they're kept in an unnatural environment. On the other hand, cows, because they have rumen, they are more resistant to the unnatural diet, and their meat is still healthier if raised commercially. Now, I'm not advocating for eating commercially raised cows. I'm just saying this is the comparison. Those of you that follow me for a while, you know that I frequently mention Paleomedicina. This is a clinic in Hungary where I got my paleoketogenic diet from, and it is a version of carnivore diet, a lot more restrictive but a lot more precise at addressing all aspects of autoimmunity. So we have over 200 different autoimmune conditions. For every single one of them, paleoketogenic diet is the answer. Now, if you ask doctors at Paleomedicina, should you be worried about pork consumption, it is basically non-existent. And just as I mentioned earlier in the video, Hungary is number 2 when it comes to pork consumption. And again, it is largely a tradition and cultural. Most of continental Europe is full of forests, so there was a lot of pigs always. And one other aspect, Eastern Europe got incorporated into this massive global supply chain relatively late, and not on the large scale like it is here in the United States. So you don't have this massive commercial production of meat as you have it here in the United States. In Eastern Europe, you still have a lot of independent small ranchers, so the access to good quality pork is very easy. So this is why I suspect if you go to Europe and start talking about omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acid in pork, not a lot of people will be interested to talk to you about it. It's just not a concern. I was trying to find the position of Paleomedicina on pork consumption, and there was once an interview with Dr. Sabatov, who is one of the main doctors at Paleomedicina, and somebody expressed the concern about pork, and he just casually said, okay, eat some other meat. I also found studies on NIH website about pork consumption. So there was a bunch of people recruited to eat pork for 6 months, and they used to eat like less than 1 serving of pork a week, and they went to eating like 6 servings of pork meals for a week, and they were being observed for 6 months. And the findings were that they all improved their fat to a muscle ratio, they decreased their fat, and their waist ratio improved, and they didn't have a cardiovascular risk at the same time. I will make a more in detail video about this in my Friday findings about the specific studies. Now, the studies didn't answer much about omega-6 and omega-3 ratio, but it is presumed that omega-6 to omega-3 ratio, if it's unfavorable, it does contribute to cardiovascular disease. Personally, I consume quite a bit of pork. For one, I am Polish, and I was raised by a pig farmer, so I am expected to break all the records when it comes to pork consumption. I like the flavor of it and all kind of different dishes you can make with it. It adds variety to my carnivore diet. And it is also cost effective, and you can actually make it work. If you like pork, you can make it work by getting conventional beef, and getting organic pork, and I think you'll be fine if you are truly concerned about the omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acid ratio. Alright, this will do it for this week's video. This concludes my research on pork. I think here in Northern America it is a legitimate concern when it comes to polyunsaturated fats in meats because of this large-scale commercial production of meat. It is not so much of a concern in Europe, and if you're on the budget, it is probably a good idea to get pasture-raised organic pork, and you can get away with eating off conventional beef. If you haven't yet, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!